Colombia es una sociedad en conflicto.
Colombia is a struggling
Todas
society.
las semanas,
In Colombia, every week, every day, there are strikes, demonstrations, roadblocks in the countryside and around cities. This is the result of a crisis, of the anguish felt by 22 million Colombians living in poverty. There are an additional 8 million Colombians who live in absolute poverty, and this gives us a total of 30 million Colombians out of a total of 40 million Colombians. Such a society is bound to generate discontent, political organizing, and social struggle.
Many young people have opted for joining armed guerrilla groups. There are no real political alternatives, and often no other political groups. The mentality of Colombia doesn't allow for other solutions.
In Colombia and abroad, an enormous controversy surrounds the FARC guerrilla. It is seen by some as a popular movement of liberation for the poor, oppressed majority of Colombia. It is viewed by others as a criminal organization terrorizing the country. And indeed, while it is not clear exactly how involved the FARC is in the various aspects of producing coca and cocaine, it is a fact that the movement relies heavily on kidnappings and extortion to fund its activities. On the other side, the paramilitaries that are opposing them are much worse, carrying out assassination and massacres on a weekly basis and controlling a wide, vertically integrated portion of cocaine trafficking.
The official rhetoric tries to depict the paramilitary groups and their actions as if they were totally independent of the state, as if they were a third party within the conflict. This, I believe, is a false image.
There are entirely too many linkages between the paramilitary and the military, entirely too many documented cases of the paramilitary slaughtering innocent people, civil society people, with the military either knowing about it and not doing anything, or basically turning away from it, not going in to defend people. And I think that's unconscionable.
Lo que nosotros señalamos claramente en nuestro informe es
what we have clearly shown in our reports is the responsibility of the state in instigating paramilitary actions and letting them carry out atrocities, massacres, and assassinations.
Atrocidades, masacres, muertes selectivas.
Barranca Bermeja, a city entirely devoted to the oil industry, an hour flight north of Bogota. It is also a city in one of the most violent regions of Colombia. Once a stronghold of the ELN guerrilla, it has since been taken over by paramilitary militias that managed to kick the guerrilla out of town. The paramilitaries have been gradually murdering all FARC and ELN known sympathizers, to the satisfaction of the police and the army, who are essentially their allies against the leftist rebels.
There are some who say that Barranca Bermeja has changed. I'd rather say that Barranca changed leadership. Barranca's situation has changed. Nobody can dispute that. But in no way can anyone say that tranquility justifies massacres, assassinations, and social cleansing, as they say. And all of these arbitrary practices that we have to reject and condemn.
In
the last 2 weeks, 2 people of our project are being killed. A woman, Alma Rosa Jaramillo, who was a lawyer, who was killed. Her body was totally destroyed by the paramilitaries. And last week, Eduardo Estrada, a peasant, was also killed by the paramilitary groups.
About 80% of the extrajudicial killing and murder murdering of innocent people is now being done right now by the paramilitary.
We have had incursions of self-defense groups, but they were incursions directed at people belonging to subversive groups. The civilian population was not targeted. They came and they know why they were coming. They did what they had to do.
Los paramilitares están combatiendo.
The paramilitaries are fighting social and political organizations. What they want is not so much to rid the country of the guerrilla as it is to get rid of all workers' unions, of all peasant, indigenous or human rights organizations, of all political parties of opposition.
Sin partidos políticos de oposición.
We don't have institutions supporting us. For instance, I cannot go to the military to ask them to protect me or to protect the projects. We are working with people in this area because I can't trust them.
El ejército en Colombia no se ha...
The army in Colombia is not convinced that its most important task is to protect the civilian population. The army thinks that its priority is to destroy the guerrilla, not to protect the population.
La protección de la población.
Focused on destroying all leftist opposition in Colombia. The military and paramilitary do not differentiate between guerrillas and political or social activists. Communities located in areas controlled by the FARC or the ELN are also perceived as enemy and heavily victimized. This phenomenon accounts for a massive internal displacement of rural populations that eventually seek refuge into town. With 1.5 million displaced and often living in sordid conditions, Colombia today has the third largest population of internal refugees in the world.
Displacing populations is part of a military strategy. This is also part of the strategy of other armed groups as well. It is a phenomenon that is responding to military, political, and economic interests. It all depends on which zone we're talking about.
The reality in Barranca Bermeja and the Magdalena Medio is no different from most parts of the country where institutions seem to have disintegrated from inside, worn by the acid of fear, corruption, intolerance, and racism.